Right, hi. Welcome to the In the Oven show. We're here to talk about business, marketing, and everything in between. I'd like to welcome Steve Swift to the chat. So yeah, maybe just talk a little bit through who you are, where you come from, all that sort of background stuff would be great so people know who you are.
Sure.
Why we're chatting to you and that sort of stuff. That would be really good.
Yeah, for sure. So, lifetime sales guy, been in sales since university, basically right out of school, and just been around sales and sales teams and sales environments and the business development world all my life. So I started off in high tech way back in the day. So this goes, I'm going to date myself here, but 96 to 98 till about 2002 when everything kind of went to hell. And then after high tech, and I left that segment for the financial services world. So I worked in what they would call a business development role at American Express for a number of years. I was there for about 10 years, traveled the world, and dealt mostly with large market clients on the west coast of Canada. And then from Amex is actually connected pretty directly to the company that I'm with today, which is Concur, owned by a larger entity, SAP, you might be familiar with as well. So, and I'm in a direct sales role right now with SAP Concur, working in Calgary, of all places.
Cool. So quite a varied experience you've got then dealing with those bigger teams. Does that come with a lot of struggle over the years? And
it definitely there's challenges with any organization, as you know, with any business. I've worked for the whole range of them, right? In the technology world, I worked with a really small startup organization in what's known as data communications environment. So working with little nuts and bolts that go onto a network. And we were literally first to market with a technology, and we had, I think, 5 people in our company with manufacturing overseas. So, the benefit with working in a smaller organization from a salesperson's perspective is you've got a lot better control over the process. Mm-hmm. One of the problems is you're responsible for everything, right? So, the nice thing to have with a large organization is now you've got teams that are responsible for building processes, putting together simple stuff that you take for granted in a large organization, right? Like marketing materials, mm-hmm. Brochures, right? Smaller environment, that's all you, right? So, yeah, to answer your question, I've definitely had experience right across the board with all sorts and types and sizes, for sure.
That's cool. So when you're talking about taking like more technologically advanced stuff and kind of the front runners of that, how has that process come about? Is it coming from like the team decision, or do you have a certain person that leads that and then you all develop it? What's the kind of process that's involved?
Yeah, so again, it really kind of varies organization to organization. You get some companies where it's very directive. A lot of what happens within a sales environment, an organization globally, it's top down, it's leadership driven, mm-hmm. So the qualities or the things that a leader holds to be near and dear to their heart, typically that's going to disseminate through the organization. Myself, my preference is to work in more of a collaborative environment. Sure. Always. And I know that's a bit of a buzzword now, but when you work in I'll call it a dictatorship. And I've seen this happen time and time again where, no one really feels valued, and salespeople actually need to feel valued as well, right? Contrary to popular belief. Mm-hmm. So that type of a collaborative environment is really, I find, where you get the most stuff done.
That really works. When you talk about buzzwords, I guess, are there any kind of sales things that you always get annoyed at people assuming about the industry and that sort of thing?
Yeah, salespeople are money grubbing bastards, right? that are just out for a buck, and let's call it what it is, right? I mean, we're all in business to make money, and salespeople, they're no different. I think, and one of the kind of tips or little bits of guidance that I usually give to new salespeople, it's really tough to sell someone a product, mm-hmm. and anybody that's never done that before, for the first time, they have challenges with it. And the biggest thing that I find people really have a hard time getting around is the fact that they're talking to somebody, and the end of the conversation, they want the outcome to be that they buy something from them, right? Yeah. And that one little piece right there dramatically affects the way people act, right?
Sure.
It's like a poker game, you know, when there's money on the table. Well, you get nervous, right? People act, they have these little twitches and these tendencies, and it's no different in the sales conversation, right? Where the salesperson gets, and you've seen it, right? Used car salespeople, you know, use the typical example where they get kind of cardboard and tense and stiff, and it's an uncomfortable dialogue, right? So, you know, I always kind of coach people to, you know, think about it in terms of a partnership, right? As a, not so much as the outcome, but more the process. If you can focus on that, then you can have a natural, normal conversation. But you know, that kind of lends itself to those stigmas, right? Where like, I know I'm being sold something, right? And no one likes to be sold anything.
No.
I don't. I'm a sales guy. and I hate it. So that would be one of the big ones, I guess. And there's a saying that I really like, which is, you can make money in the world doing one of two things, right? One thing, which is something that no one else can do, right? Like a doctor or a lawyer. The second thing you can make money at is something that no one else wants to do.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't go through university saying, I want to go into sales, right?
True. Did you not? How did it
I had no idea. I had no idea. You know, I went through the process, and I think that's what happens with a lot of people is, you know, you're in university and it's kind of done backwards, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you should kind of figure out what you want to do and then go learn how to do it. But just the way our system is structured, it's not like that, right? But you know, you naturally fall into it. Like it's kind of like pulling teeth initially, like, oh God, I gotta call somebody and try to get them to buy something, right? I would say very few people are natural salespeople.
Yeah. Do you feel you are?
I feel like I'm a natural communicator.
Right, okay. That helps a lot, though.
But that definitely helps a lot. And then even that piece has evolved over time. You know, I've evolved that over time. Like, I feel like when I first started, I look back at my former self, I'm like, what the hell what were you doing?
And do you think that, like, revolving yourself around the customer experience, do you think that's made you focus more on communication?
It's definitely helped. And I feel like, a lot of people get into sales and they just figure, I'm gonna go sell something, I'm gonna make a lot of money. Right? I feel like I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna sell stuff. But there's a lot to it. There's a process. There's a whole bunch of different little components that go into being a really good, I would probably say employee in general, right? But salesperson in particular, because the trade itself tends to attract a certain type. We're not going to get in trouble for saying all this stuff.
Maybe.
Certain type of person, right? Tends to, and I say tends to. You know, people might not get into it that have the best time management skills or that have the best written and verbal communication skills, right? People might get into it just because they want to make a quick buck. Well, you know, if that's your goal, then you're probably not going to do that good, right? I think it's important to have a lot of the skill set going in, which is now why, you know, if you look at like a lot of employers now, they require a university degree. They require a bachelor's degree. Not because it's going to help you sell stuff, but because it makes you, you know, it's an indicator that you've kind of gone through a process and you can manage yourself to a certain extent. Right?
That's exactly what it is. It's a ticket to kind of get you into that level of understanding. And when you talk about like strategies, what are the kind of most effective strategies you've used for sales? Like, I guess it's a change and evolved over the years, but thinking like now, what would be your main focus to think this is the way we're going to do it? Has it kind of developed to that extent?
So I'll say this, and this is another thing that I've learned over the years, you know, it really is extremely important, I find, to get involved with an organization that you can really buy into. That's the first thing.
Like create a brand, basically.
Great brand and a great product, right? I would say the top salespeople are a lot of, you know, they're in high demand. And then you kind of have the middle tier of folks and then, you know, kind of everybody else. And the top salespeople are able to kind of decide where they want to go. And I would say it's worthwhile if you're starting out a career in sales. And I've just recently given someone this advice: is spend a little more time on the front end, right? Salespeople interview well by definition, so they're really hard to hire because they all look good on the outside. But just make sure that, you know, as an individual contributor, that you're getting behind an employer or a product that can really deliver value, or at least you feel like you can clearly articulate that value, and it's something that you can get excited about as a salesperson, right? But you know, to answer your question, I think it's evolved definitely. How companies have gone to market. Obviously, the digital age is a huge one. And a lot of products now are digital products. They're online. Like that's what we do. It's a cloud-based service. It's not really tangible. It just makes the role of the salesperson even that much more important in a digital age where, you know, anybody can build a good website. Your competitive advantage is your people.
Definitely, and it still comes down to relationships. Even though we've got the digital world, it's still almost an element of who you know.
Absolutely, and relationships, and then you layer onto that. So there's obviously the communication component to it, making sure that you've got people that can communicate effectively, that can go out into the world and spread or evangelize your product or your space. And then it kind of comes down to process. Having a really good process that you can map your people to, where it becomes a predictable step-by-step procedure that you can walk a client through and manage.
Yeah.
Right. Which again, I think a lot of companies, I've worked for a lot of them. That's a piece that they're lacking. Right. And I think it makes it difficult from a salesperson's perspective if you don't know where you're at in the conversation with someone.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're going to get to where you're going, type of thing. Right.
No, definitely, it makes such a difference. Quite powerful as well to have that. I think it separates the company from the rest, I think. So talking about that kind of extra edge that your company maybe has, what do you think has really influenced you as a person as you've developed to maybe have that mindset and that outlook?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, if you just look at my career path, so I started off really at the bottom rung, so the bottom tier, and just paid my dues, for lack of a better word, right? Where, I was the guy that was responsible for everything, for the entire sales process from soup to nuts. When I started off, it was more in a business development role, but we had a product that had really no name recognition whatsoever, calling into a market that we had no contacts in. So cutting your teeth, doing that type of thing, contrast to what I'm doing now, working for I'll say a huge organization with lots of brand recognition. It's so much easier to do, right?
Is that just because you've got a bigger team around you and more weight, or is there other things that come into play with?
Well, I think just better product, I guess.
All right.
Better process, tested and true. So our organization, for example, has been around for 27 years.
Right.
There's kind of two organizations, and we're a company within a company, but even our parent company's been around for about that long. So they've already made all the mistakes,
right? Yeah.
And they can kind of present you back with, here's kind of the way that we do things now. And it's always evolving, obviously, but it definitely helps to have the resources behind you and best practices that you can kind of live by. But, from a individual contributor's perspective, there's kind of a light switch that kind of flips at some point. And I don't know how long ago it was for me, probably about 10 years ago, where all of a sudden it just, everything becomes that much more comfortable.
Yeah.
And it just becomes that much more easy when you realize people just want to have conversations with you. They just want to talk to you, right? So take the whole selling piece out of it. There's no need to be nervous or anxious when you're talking to, a VP of finance or a CFO or a CEO. They want all the same stuff that you want. It's just in the context of a business environment, right? They're normal people, right? You can have conversations with them, call them up and just chat with them. Just make sure that you have a plan as to what you want to talk to them about and sort of the what's in it for them at the end of the day. So
how do you develop that plan? Do you think about it meticulously before you call somebody, or is it kind of a bit more finding out on the call kind of thing and just finding common ground?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So definitely practice, because I've done it quite a bit. A lot of it comes naturally to me. But the big thing for me with any person that I'm talking to or any organization that I'm interacting with is really getting to what, and there's a Simon Sinek video out there called The Why. So getting to the why. It's a really, really good video. And I think it really best applies to the sales process or any kind of conversation where, you're looking for sort of a mutually beneficial outcome between two parties. And, I'm calling them. So I'm trying to figure out what's their why. What is your why? If we really want to attach this to a long-term successful project, we got to figure out what's important to you, what's important to the organization globally, and then, and really peeling back the layers, right? So whatever that looks like ultimately, and then attaching what we do to that. How can we help you get there, right? That to me is why people buy stuff. It's not because it's, I'll use us as an example. It's an automation. Who cares, right? You automate stuff. Good for you, right? Doesn't mean anything in a vacuum, or it only has impact in the context that what you do is going to help me accomplish my long-term goals, both personally, but also from an organizational perspective. And everybody has different goals, and we talk to different stakeholders within an organization, right? We'll talk to someone in the finance department, an AP clerk, right? Well, what he or she holds near and dear to their heart might just be like, get rid of this massive amount of paper on my desk, right? It's pretty simple. But then when you go up the ladder, if you will, to an executive, now they're looking at long-term strategic growth objectives. They don't care about paper. They don't see paper, right? But to go in and make those assumptions is, you can really get yourself into a bad place as a salesperson. So it really helps to have those deep conversations. And people like to talk about their business as well.
How do you find the process to actually align with those key decision makers? How do you find that why? What are some examples of, finding that common ground, and how do they get on board? As in, they have their why and you have your why, and what are examples of when they've kind of met?
Yeah, well, so our why doesn't really count.
Yeah, no, I know that, but how do you make yours apply? I guess
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it just comes from asking really good questions, really kind of defining where that person is at from organizational perspective, but also just from a personal perspective, right? And just having deep conversations. And
yeah, so you find that the deeper you get to know someone, the better relationship you obviously have. But then that seems to align with how well they receive your product and how on board they are, I guess. So how do you find you've actually had to adapt throughout your working life? I know we talked kind of briefly on it, but has there been anything that you've majorly changed in your career that you've kind of had to go, I've really got to change the way I'm doing this, it's not working?
I wouldn't say there's been any major adjustments. It's more been like an evolution over time, right? So just understanding the way people react, to, certain points of the conversation, or, just how to present better, how to present the data back in a cohesive and, appealing manner, right? Because again, everybody's kind of different, how they receive information and, how they want to look at things. I'd say just being very articulate as well has helped me. Right. Yeah. So being very focused on my process, and time management obviously is very important. So it's all those little things that kind of go unchecked, a lot of the times that it's really important to pay attention to.
No, definitely. And kind of nurturing those relationships is important. Like, how often do you find yourself connecting with them generally, maybe personally? And do you find you connect a lot more regularly, or is it kind of always a business intent behind it?
Yeah, no. So I feel like with a lot of my customers, there's a personal connection. I think there kind of has to be. Yeah. Right? Just getting to understand what's important to them again, and just being friendly, being a friendly guy, which I think I am. I think I pulled it off pretty good.
Convincing,
yeah. For lack of a better word, right?
Yeah. So like, when you, I hate the word like business development, but when you think of it, what does that cover? What does that encapsulate really?
Yeah, so to me, I mean, business development really is, a relationship between two organizations that's constructed, if you will, to try to produce mutually beneficial outcomes, right, for both companies. So, could be opportunity sharing, could be working with each other's customer groups, whatever that interaction looks like. It's an ongoing process. And so, when I think of a business development rep, I think of a rep that, it's primarily like a B2B position where, their job is to work with a partner or a partner channel, make sure that the wheels are turning on new business opportunities between the two organizations.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
And when you're kind of developing business, are you involved in that more, or are you kind of, you take the contacts and develop and grow and nurture them? Yeah,
so, in contrast, a sales role would be where you're actually going out and selling directly to a business, right? So direct B2B sales is a good example. I think everyone's job in an organization covers business development to a certain extent. It's your role to go out and be an ambassador for the business. And I'll give you an example. Like, we work with partners globally, right? So we connect with a whole sort of suite of partners depending on what they do. So, for example, payroll providers or travel management companies or IT service providers. And so, I take it upon myself as a salesperson and as an ambassador of the company to go out and make these ground level relationships. And I think that's really critical. Similar to how an organization doesn't want to do business with another company where they don't like their sales guy, right? Like, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen salespeople walk into fantastic opportunity and make a mess of it just because, they just haven't thought it through, or, if I'm being frank, maybe they're just not that good at what they do. Same thing with a partner, in the business development realm. Like, organizationally, it might look like a great fit, but at the end of the day, every company's got reps or boots on the street. Those are the people that really need to connect if you want to kind of get the world turning, right?
So when you're collaborating with both companies on a product and I guess on a sales perspective, how has that changed over time? I guess with the digital age now and working more globally, you have less face time, or are you finding that is affecting the way you work?
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of what we do now can be accomplished just WebEx, like I do a ton of that, right?
Yeah.
WebEx, phone calls, virtual interactions.
Do you find that harder though?
It's an interesting dynamic, right?
Yeah.
I find it a lot harder.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to sell something to someone, right? Like, I can't read the expression on your face if I've already said something that pissed you off, right? Or if you're just not buying into, I think a big part of it kind of ties back to what's important to the individual, right? And it's really difficult to understand what's important to somebody if I'm not looking at them in the face. Like, they can say yes all they want on a phone, but at the end of the day, it's body language, right? It's so much easier when you're in a room full of people and I can see who's not bought into what we're talking about. Just, I don't have to hear you say anything, right? And so, that really impedes your ability to kind of get to what's important to that individual. Like, I've worked on big projects, and we'll call them deals, where we're one person in an organization, for example, an executive assistant can derail a massive project just because, we haven't addressed her concerns and what's important to her. And I think organizationally, that's a really important thing. You want to have that buy-in across all stakeholders within a company. And it's really tough to gauge that over a WebEx or a phone call, right? So I do a lot of stuff in person. I try to do as much as I can in person.
So you physically travel quite a lot then?
Physically travel, yeah, quite a bit.
Because it wasn't working as well, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't working as well, or you just feel like...
I need to speak to this person.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be a complicated engagement. There's a lot of moving parts. I want to show up on person and have a conversation with someone.
Definitely.
And they appreciate that too. So, tomorrow afternoon, I'm driving out to, I don't know what the area is called, but it's about an hour away.
Okay.
It's not a big opportunity, but, they're a hands-on group.
Yeah.
And they're an interesting company. So these guys actually have a whole group of veterinarians that they fly all over the world to help them better manage their feed systems.
Right, okay.
So it's a unique business. It's an interesting business. And they just flat out told me, like, look, if you want to work with us, you got to show up. So going to put some miles on the car tomorrow. And
old school then, isn't it?
Go visit them, yeah. Which is great to hear, though. It's nice to hear people say that, right?
It's refreshing for you, I think, because you clearly thrive more in that environment. It's important. And I think we are losing that aspect of business. It's very much quick and over the computer, and I think we're suffering a little bit, I think.
I would tend to agree. I think when it comes to a cloud solution, like the one that we offer, there's two big things that cloud companies want to think about or be able to deliver. The one thing is you want to make it easy to buy. Do I need to see you in person? Not necessarily, right? But if I do need to see you in person, then that's going to kind of be a critical component to the process. And I think that it is a massive competitive advantage for organizations.
Definitely.
Right? Where if you do have the ability to go out and see your clients, you've already set yourself apart from 90% of the other companies that are out there, right? And then the other component that's really crucial is time to value. You want to be able to show value to your customers almost instantly when they implement the solution.
So when you talk about being financially viable, I know you're kind of an advocate for that, as like helping people through what pitfalls companies go through. What sort of things come to mind initially when you warn companies that are maybe on the edge or not doing things that you think they should be doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way to kind of start that is to say that, I think that the world is evolving dramatically, the business world, the technologies that are available. What might have been a best practice even 5-7 years ago is no longer the case, right? So, in the context of what we do, right, and selfishly speaking, but automating a lot of the financial function within an organization. And when I say automation, I mean really, if you think about it in terms of an organization's data, right?
Yeah.
And in today's day and age, that's, everything, it revolves around data, it revolves around information. And the life's blood of any organization is how an organization makes and spends money.
Yeah.
The ins and the outs. It's really simple. So, we work with literally thousands of customers globally, and they all have unique businesses. Like the one I was talking about that I'm going to go see tomorrow. That's a really unique business. I've never even heard of a business that does that before. But when you dig into it and you peel it all back, the way they work is always it's identical. It's the exact same, right? I think what companies are finding out now is that today's business world is fast-paced. It's it's evolving, and if you want to keep up, right, you need to have the tools that are in place that are going to enable you to scale. But most importantly, the better a handle you can get on your cash flow, the more successful you're gonna be, right?
I think companies overlook costs a lot. I think you could make so much more money, and people always driving for more sales and sales. Where I think efficiency is something that is overlooked. I think. Do you find that?
So, and here's a Gartner number for you. His Gartner Research Group number: a 5% decrease in your operating costs has as much impact on the organization as a 30% increase in your revenue, in your operating revenue, which makes sense, right? A lot of companies don't think about that, right? So you think about bottom line improvements. A lot of companies, again, to your point, are just concerned with top line revenue growth, which obviously is critical. It's important. You definitely want to see an upward trend there, but what a lot of companies fail to pay a lot of attention to is their bottom line and their improvements. And Calgary, I can use it as an example. It's an interesting beast because when oil and gas was going crazy, everyone was printing money.
Yep.
Right? And literally no one wanted to look at operational efficiencies. Like, it wasn't a topic. We're going to pay somebody $50 an hour to manage our AP workflow, manual environment, because we don't care. Like, we just don't have the time to sit down. And now what we're finding is the opposite. So people ask me all the time, what's the Calgary market like to sell into or to work with? And I say it's been fantastic. It's been great. Now you've got an engaged group of business leaders who are very serious about taking a second look at the way that they're doing things.
That's a good thing, though. I mean, I think the oil industry in general was a bit like that, not just Calgary. So I kind of want to think a bit more in the future. I know we've developed a lot over the past 5-10 years, but what do you see coming in more as like maybe a sales strategy? There's things like VR, the voice is becoming popular, all these sorts of things. But what are your kind of thoughts on? Yeah,
big time. Well, video's going to be the next gen stuff. So it's all going to be video. It's all going to be personalized messaging, like to the nth degree. It's something on a video platform. Yeah. So we're as an organization, we're moving to video messaging.
Right. Okay.
Right. So it's highly personalized, targeted at key decision makers within an organization. Right. There's platforms now that we have in place where it makes it easy to record a quick video. I don't know that I would do that. I'm not the most photogenic guy in the world, but some people might want to do that. But I feel you come across much better in person. So much gets lost in an email. We get way too many emails as it is, right? Yeah. So if you can have a high impact video message attached to an email correspondence, the open rate is much, much higher. That's what it's all about now, right? And then the rate of response, like how do we get somebody to get back to me on this type of stuff?
So in terms of what you've done over the years, do you feel you've become more social media conscious and thinking about that more and more and feeling it's now necessity? Is that something that you just can't forget about?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think from both an organizational perspective and also as an individual contributor, either on the business development side or the sales side, you've got to have a presence out there, right? I was just talking to a friend of mine who's he's in medical appliance sales.
Okay.
So he works for a big endoscopic company. And, he's looking around, he's looking at a new role. And I go to search him on LinkedIn and he wasn't there. And I'm like,
you're dead.
So I said to him, like, where's your LinkedIn profile, dude? Like, you've got to, because again, I think people want to attach a face to the name, and that's an easy way to do that. And just seeing who's connected to who. So that's your best bet, right? Which is, if we look back at how to sell or how to effectively penetrate these organizations, it starts with partner channels, right?
Yep.
So do you have a set of customers that you can connect me to? It's a no-brainer, right? Or just one-on-one relationships. It makes the world a smaller place, big time, is what I've found. Now I go on to LinkedIn, and the first thing that I'll do is I'll look to see who knows the person that I'm trying to connect with.
Warm lead, yeah.
And I actually find it weird now. So I've worked in the Calgary market for about 5 years. I find it weird when they don't know anybody that I know, right? When there's not an intermediary, right? I can't call somebody. I'm like, how do you not know? I know everybody.
It's Calgary.
It's Calgary. It's a small world. But I think it's a net benefit to the client and the customers and the people that are out there that are actually evaluating these new solutions, because they're able to go and do a lot of the legwork themselves. If we're being frank, I think that probably 75 to 90% of the decision making has already been done by the time they come and try to connect with you.
You just have to find the people in the right headspace to match with you, isn't it, really? Like you said, they've already made their decision.
Right.
You just need to be able to find them. I think that's becoming easier, especially with LinkedIn. You can kind of focus ads to specific people almost, and tailor ads to them. I mean, that's just scary and powerful.
Right. You want to make it easy for them to buy too, right? So if they want to come to you with a requirement, then let's not overcomplicate this. It can be a pretty simple process.
I think it's good because you're not getting bombarded with loads of irrelevant ads and losing faith in advertising. And if advertising was there to purely solve your problems and give you the solution you were looking for, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately where it's going, right? Like, messaging that's highly personable and directed at a specific individual to help them solve a specific problem that they've identified at some point along the line.
In terms of sales, marketing, all that sort of things, are there any things that you really wish you could have or thought you should have known were going to happen and you haven't really, retrospectively? Is there anything that you sort of thought, I should have seen that coming and I could have made a bigger opportunity of that?
Yeah, well, I think that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a really good question. And I think more salespeople in general should ask themselves that question on a more regular basis.
Sure.
One of my strengths, if you want to call it that, as a salesperson, and this didn't happen right away, but just the ability to look back and really self-diagnose, do a diagnostic on interactions. And it could be a super small, just a conversation, right? How do you feel that went, And being honest with yourself, right? One of the things that salespeople tend to get, we call it happy years. They get happy years. So they feel like this has been a very positive thing. The outcome's going to be positive. And I find salespeople that are really successful almost take the opposite approach, where they say, okay, that all sounded great, but here's what I could have done better. That's why I find having a really good sales mentor or a sales leader can come in really handy. Someone that can sit in on your calls. I mean, I've done this for a long time, but I feel like I'm learning every single day. There's stuff that I'm getting better at every single day, both personally, organizationally, from a sales process perspective. So anywhere you can have someone, give you that just solicited, fine-tuned advice around how you could do something better, I find it really helpful. There's not a lot of people like that out there.
So how long have you had that relationship? Has it been a changing person, or has this always been someone that's been there that you can always lean on? And
I have a mentor in my organization, someone that I look up to, one of the leaders of our organization. But I find, as long as you're open, anybody can fill the role, right? They just need to sit back and have sort of an unbiased perspective around how you're doing things. And so I'll give you an example. I'm switching directors now, so I'll be reporting to a new director.
Okay.
Coming up here shortly, and one of the first things I expressed to him was, I know I've been doing this for a while, but that doesn't mean that I'm beyond coaching. And I think where he can add the most value to what I'm doing is just critique me.
That's really powerful. I've always kind of had that person, or at least seeked it if I've lost it or whatever from moving and transitioning. But yeah, I found that really makes a difference. You have to be critical.
I agree, and I think being critical and being able to analyze oneself, which doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. No. It doesn't come naturally for me, but you force yourself to do it, right? And if you're really honest, I think that there's an opportunity to grow and learn in almost every single interaction that you have. So
what's an example that you've really critiqued yourself and really been disappointed? What's like the dirty stuff where you've kind of gone...
It's like it's going to go on a talk show. And tell me your dirtiest, darkest secret. I'd say going back, this goes back a few years now, but having presentation skills and having a presence in front of a room, and it's a challenge for a lot of people, but I took it personally. And it's funny because people would compliment me on my presentation style, and I would sit back and go,
what the hell?
What are you guys looking at the same thing that I'm looking at? Because, and so I started to refine it and just work on it, and but really kind of taking it to that next level so that you could be part of that top 20% or whatever you want to call it. So, and being brutally honest with myself, just, really fine tuning the little points, right? Like not saying and ah. So that would be one thing. That's one thing that I think I've really turned around in the last few years and gotten really good at. Not to compliment myself, but...
I've not heard any ums or ahs today. So. No, I really appreciate your time, Steve. And it's great to get your insight. Really appreciate that. So
thanks for having me.
So like, subscribe, and all those sorts of wonderful things. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.